Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here and dive into NFTs and what you're building in the bear market, explore the latest trends, developments in the industry, and crypto and NFTs is something we're really focused on. I know you have a mushroom tincture business.
Yeah, I got a whole mushroom company. Yep. Yeah, it's umbo. We have tinctures, we have a nutrition bar, we have some capsules. It's real good stuff, man. Yeah, the whole like mushroom, you know, space is still relatively unknown in a sense. Like only 10% of the mushroom like is known about mushrooms and what they can do. And you know, it's growing. The more people start coming over to the side, and the more research and development is going to be on the side, it's going to really grow and really open up just the potential of what these mushrooms can do.
Yeah, it's definitely a new thing on the market. I haven't seen them till recently, so that's cool that you're expanding in that side of things. So I
Yeah.
do want to transition into the NFT questions and then Bitcoin, or I call it Don Bitcoin. Sorry. Then Don will ask you a few questions and what your thoughts and perspectives are. So I seen that you have the metatoads gang.
hmm
So I would love to hear more about like that NFT project and what inspired you to create it.
Yeah. What inspired me to create it was, I'm an artist by nature. Not only a mixed martial artist, but before I was a mixed martial artist, I was an artist. I love to draw. It was like one of my favorite pastimes to do. One really good way for me to de-stress a lot of my life is with drawing. So I kind of got out of it just through the whole process of just putting so much focus into fighting and the whole everything the fighting world brought. But I would do it from time to time. And when the pandemic hit, it was just one of those times where I just kind of went inside and really started doing things that that used to excite me before, and started drawing again. And my friend told me about this NFT projects, and how these NFTs was blowing up, making all this money. And I'm just like, what? And he was like, yeah, you're an artist. Why don't you draw something? And I know Gutter Cat Gang, and I know a lot of different NFT guys that I'll put you in contact with, and we'll see if we can get you some traction. So I was like, all right, cool. So when I sat down to draw, everything just went blank. Like I just didn't know what I wanted to draw. I was like, dang, I don't know what I really want to really represent me. But then I started to think about the most impactful event that I had within the last 3 to 5 years, and which was my 5-MeO DMT toad experience. Uh, for those who may not know, 5-MeO DMT is one of the most powerful entheogens, which is psychedelic, one of the most powerful entheogens in the world. And it has an ability to bring you to source, bring you to source energy. I know like a lot of people who may not understand this kind of talk, like source
Mhm.
energy, all that kind of stuff, and may not realize how real it is. But through having that experience, I seen the beginning and the end of my existence. And it was a wild experience. It was a wild experience. And it was one that woke me up in such a profound way, and really had me do um, a lot of life changing things that just completely you know changed the way that I am as a person. From the way that I eat to the way that I think to everything that I'm
Mhm.
doing and everything I put my effort towards. It was just complete overhaul of who I am. And
Yeah.
when I started to think about what I wanted to draw, just the toad came to mind. So I drew a toad. I drew the toad, and it was like a toad mix between the toad and like I envisioned the toad like Master Yoda, because when
Mhm.
you're in that space, that 5-MeO-DMT space, it's almost as if like you have your higher self, and you're and this this force, this godlike force just there, and it's like it's teaching you some lessons. So I
Mhm.
wanted to really depict that in the art. And I got the art done, and then I went to my boy and was like, "Yo, what do you think?" And then we just went with it from there. And one of the biggest things for me that I'm really proud about the project for is the fact that I I like to bring in the mental health aspect of it,
Mhm.
because up until I had that experience, I was struggling mentally. I was in transition from out of MMA and just to
Mhm.
the next phase of my life, and I didn't really know what that would be. So I was a bit stressed, a bit depressed, and just just uncertain. And through doing that medicine, it really just kind of helped me to open up another layer. So a big part of my cause is to mental health awareness. I give back part of my proceeds to mental health awareness. And we started off in the market when it was kind of so-so, but it was kind of tapering off. And we were doing pretty good. We actually did an event last August when Usman fought Leon Edwards the second time in Utah. We had I did a real life utility, had about
Mhm.
8 people come out and just enjoy the fights. And we, got them some tickets and we went and did behind the scenes. And, we got to hang out, went to some parties, and it was just like a weekend type thing. So it was a good time, and it was a lot of fun. But since that event, I haven't really done any other utilities with it, except for like, get on and get on my page and speak and things like that. But uh, that's about where I'm at with the toe business. Right now, we're in a bit of a rebuilding phase, like you said, and building in this bear market, just
Mhm.
because uh, the crypto market is really uncertain for a lot of people. So it's
Mhm.
people are not really spending like how they were
Mhm.
when they were with the when things were going good.
That's awesome to hear that you took a vision and you put it from pen on paper to like a reality. And I that was going into my next question was like the utilities. But before we talk about that, the spiritual experience, I could really relate to that because I had a rough upbringing as well. Getting in trouble and just not being my best version of myself. And I don't know if Don's ever done it, but psychedelics, that experience helped me envision a life that I wanted for myself because I had two routes. I can go down route A, which is down,
Hmm.
and then route two is I can create a life that I want. And, um, that's how I came up with the idea of DeFi or like creating information and selling information and doing like high ticket sales and creating offers. And I would have never imagined myself doing that without actually going through what I've been through and having that spiritual experience. So when you say medicine, yeah, I agree. It's a medicine that I don't like to abuse. It's something that it brings me to align to my goals. And if I ever feel like I'm falling off, I can always get back on track and maybe like once or twice a year type of thing.
I want to
Yeah,
ask a
thank you,
follow
man.
up. Rashad, so my day job, I do chemical dependency counseling. So I'm doing a lot of mental health work with people. Um, Personally, I think the toughest thing for me is always just being in the moment, being present.
Hmm.
Just like it's so hard to just like focus and just enjoy like what's happening now. I've been doing a little bit of the Wim Hof breathing. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Some
Yeah.
cold exposure. So like what advice would you give to people just starting out trying to find that like presence of just being present in the current moment?
The first thing you have to do, you have to practice mindfulness, and practicing mindfulness is just being aware of self, and it's kind of hard at first because we don't realize how much we give our attention to other things, to our phones, to stuff that we have to do, and things that don't necessarily nurture us from a center self, from an internal point of view. So, one thing I would say is, um, start writing down, start journaling, start writing down some of your thoughts, some of your everything. Write down anything that you can think of, and what usually happens is that through your writing, you learn to find a language to put to your feelings and to your thoughts. And once you have a language, once you have a way to kind of narrow down what's going on in your mind and just what areas you want to get better in, then you can start building a roadmap. And it's funny enough is when you start writing down and journaling and you start getting connected with yourself on that level, it seems like a natural unfolding, like the universe just kind of opens up and um kind of guide you down a path that you really need to start taking. You may not know what you need to do, you may not know how you're going to do it, but once you start writing down and once you start to, put your thoughts to paper, it's like it's like you're writing a spell, right? And your wand is your pen, and once you start writing it down, it starts to it starts to manifest. It starts to get a little bit clearer. But I think the first thing that people need to do is tap, just check in with self, and it's hard because we have a lot of areas in our life, and I'll speak for myself that it can be hard to look at, right? Mistakes you've made in the past, things that you wish that you would have done better. And, some of these ghosts tend to pop up and it gets a little bit uncomfortable to stare too long in the mirror. But that's when you really got to stare because um, it's the mind. The mind makes things a lot worse than they actually really are. But once you really start just uncovering that layer, you're able to really get to the bottom of it. But I would say first and foremost, you start writing it down. And then when you start writing it down, you know, take 5 minutes and just sit with yourself in quietness in 5 minutes. And I say 5 minutes because usually about 5 minutes is, about as long as people who don't really meditate can start doing it before they get too antsy, and just it's not about the length of time that you meditate, but it's just being able to take that second out and start somewhere. But the more you start and just take some time out to just sit quietly, the longer your duration to be where you're able to sit quietly, and you just watch your mind jump around. You have monkey mind, but all that's okay. People think that, when I meditate, I'm supposed to be in this state where nothing affects me and no thoughts are going through my mind. That's not true. When you're in meditation, the fun of it all is just watching where your monkey mind goes and just be an observer and just, don't put any labels to it, don't claim it, don't try to hold tight to it, but just watch it go. And then pretty soon you will have no thought at all. And then that's when you really start to get into that next layer of meditation.
Yeah, auditing oneself every single day is super important. And then, looking yourself in the mirror, even when times are hard, and like auditing yourself and looking yourself in a third person perspective. And that's going back to like psychedelics, is that really helped me step out of myself and look at myself and audit myself, my appearance, my personality, my skill sets.
With the whole psychedelics thing, like every single time I talk about it, I feel like I feel like I'm saying go and do psychedelics, but that's not the message at all. I mean, uh, if you have an understanding and if you have done that before and you have somebody who can help you down that journey, that's great. But at the end of the day, whatever you can get with psychedelics, you can get through meditation. It just may take a lot longer. But for me, the path that I was on in life, I was living this like, celebrity life and doing all these things. And I just got myself to the point where I was so far on one end of the spectrum, of reality and just of the superficiality of it all, that I didn't really believe that all these things that I'm talking about really actually exist. I thought it was just some old like foo-foo guru talk that people needed to follow a leader and oh, the energy and oh, this and all that. I didn't really think it was real until I felt it. And when I felt it, it was something else. It was something that I never, ever, ever thought could happen. I never thought it was real. And when it happened, as far as, me having that glimpse into, another reality and being able to um, get a glimpse of just another part of myself, I didn't really know it was real. But when I experienced it, I was just like, okay, it's real, and I've read books by, Eckhart Tolle and, Jiddu Krishnamurti and all these great philosophers, Alan Watts and all these guys. And I understood them talking about source energy and all those things. But for me, it was something that, okay, I can understand it, but it was, you know, I didn't really have the comprehension of it, but having the experience is the difference between reading and reading comprehension.
Yeah, so I love the spiritual talk. That's really helpful. Mindfulness. We just wrote a newsletter on mindfulness and how we can incorporate that with investing. And I also want to dive into this question. And for someone that's into NFTs and UFC, do you see a future where NFTs and cryptocurrency become more integrated with traditional sports? So like sports cards, digital cards. Like I was thinking of like a crazy knockout and then like a holographic like NFT, and that NFT could possibly get you utilities to like matches and raising capital yourself without using third parties. Like, is that something you see in the future?
Yeah, it's already happened. Izzy has one of his knockouts when he knocked out Robert Whitaker on a nice doped out, iced out gold chain,
Oh,
where
that's
it's a
cool.
hologram of him knocking out Whitaker, and also Francis Ngannou has something very similar with him doing something of that sort. But one of the parts of his contract that he was trying to work out was to be able to, you know, have his ancillary rights, so then he can,
Mhm.
do, be able to get pieces of his fights in the UFC and make NFTs out of it. But yeah, NFTs, I believe, they're very good for having tokens, right? Like for instance, you get like a special privilege if say for instance they have a utility where you buy from the UFC, right? And all those who owns that NFT, they can go and have a meeting with the fighters afterwards, or they can go inside the cage or have different experiences. And I think that's going to be the way of business. This crypto market is is something that's here to stay. Cash is gone away, and we're living in that transition right now, and it's very scary, to be honest, because you know the way I see it is the fact that um, this is a wave that no one can stop, but it's a matter of who gets to control that wave, right?
Mhm.
And with the Bitcoin, it's more in the hands of, the citizens. But, we also know that, the central bank system, central bank digital currency is on its way, and they're doing everything they can to really, quell the competition, which will be Bitcoin and every other kind of cryptocurrency out of there. So right now it's a fight and jockeying for position, to be honest, the way I see it.
How do you feel, Rashad, about uh, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general? Like, are you an investor? Are you just like watching from the outside, kind of waiting to make your move? Like, what do you think? What do you think as from an investment perspective?
I have a little Bitcoin, but I was a lot of Bitcoin, but then I kind of changed things up a little bit because I got a little nervous, That I
Sure,
got nervous. I
absolutely.
got nervous just because like I just see I see the control mechanism, and what they're trying to do is, and they, I mean, the government agencies are trying to do in order to bring things to the point where they can control them. So it's a bit of a fight, like I was saying. So I got kind of nervous because I was feeling like you know the government is going to win, of course, because we're in a war per se, and most people don't really realize that there's even a war going on, and
Absolutely.
it's not a typical war in the fashion in which we understand war, and that's why people are having a hard time truly understanding and conceptualizing that this type of war that we're in right now is much more dangerous than any war that we've ever fought before, because it's really for the right for our autonomy, and at the end of the day, because when we can be controlled in a financial way, then we have no rights anymore. We're all we're all entering back into slavery in a sense. And it's scary because, I have children, and it worries me the world that they might up in, just because of the fact that things are getting so tight with control, and, freedom of choice is a thing of the past in a sense.
The beauty about Bitcoin, what attracted me to it initially was the fact that, the decentralized nature of it. And you talk about the control, and they've been trying, and they'll continue to try to have some semblance of control over it. But the fact that there's nobody, pulling the strings behind the scenes of it, and actually like stopping transactions, being that you have to shut the internet down to stop transactions, I think is
Yeah.
is is what's made me feel comfortable knowing that it is a decentralized alternative to what we both believe the CBDCs is going to eventually be, which will take away a lot of privacy and take away a lot of autonomy and the ability to transact however which way you want. Because in a centralized digital currency like that, I mean, they pull all the strings. They take cash off the street, and basically you have to have the permission of the government to transact. Where something like Bitcoin being permissionless and trustless, the fact that we don't have to trust anybody to transact in Bitcoin is what is I think the beauty of that technology.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful in that regard, and it really just it allows so much purchasing power, and it allows so much freedom. Even a bit more freedom than cash in some respects because of the fact that the way that the transactions are. But I just have a hard time just um I just, I kind of want to fast forward and see the end of the movie, but at the same time, I don't because I'm afraid to see what's going to happen. And by that, I mean like, um, it's tough right now, man. Like, I really don't know if we could win this, to be honest. I just, I see the governments worldwide and our government for sure. They're clamping down and they're really playing chess. They're playing a long game, and it's really hard to tell when something's been government infiltrated, like with that not too long ago where, all those people lost their money. What is that? What was it called again? The NFT company with that kid running it over in the islands. What is it? What was it called?
SBF, FTX.
SPF. Yeah, yeah, FTX. Dude, that had to be a government situation. That had to be government CIA psych ops all
A
over that
huge
man because
rug pull.
it's yeah. I mean that was a huge biggest rug pull, and it was meant to really do what it has done, and which is shake the faith of people in this market. And I feel like one more of those. How many people truly still hangs on,
Mhm.
and what does it really do? And is
I,
it's tough.
I think where there's actors, where there's human intervention, I think there should be regulation, especially for centralized exchanges. But that really defeats the whole purpose of cryptos because we want to be self-sovereign and and own our private keys. And that's where, some would argue that if you're in cold storage correctly, then, that's the safest way to hold your cryptocurrency. And
That's where people like me and you, Troy, come in, where we have to educate people that when they held their money on FTX, they were trusting Sam Bankman-Fried the same way as somebody trusts their money at First Republic Bank that failed. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
these centralized entities, there's trust that's needed that can be violated. And that's where, when I go back to Bitcoin, there is no trust that's needed. It's a trustless, project where you don't have to worry about, if you self-sovereign and you hold it in self-custody, somebody rug pulling you or taking it off of a Coinbase or taking it off of a FTX, a Gemini, a Binance, like any of those exchanges where you trust them to be good actors. People are people. They're going to do bad things, especially when there's hundreds of millions or billions of dollars involved. You're going to have people be greedy, and things like that will continue to happen, which is why you have to learn. We have to educate and teach people how to actually hold their assets.
So, Don, how do you see everything shaking out with everything that is CBDC and with the Bitcoin? Like, do you feel like there is a way that both can happen, or do you feel like the government is going to definitely destroy one in order to keep it going?
I think the jury's kind of still out. I think what's happening in July with the Fed now, they're going to do this dry run where they're going to see how it works behind the scenes. A lot of people are a little confused. They think that the CBDC is going to be dropped in July, but it's not. It's basically the ability for banks to transact instantaneously amongst each other. Because as you know now, you go to the bank and you put your check in the bank, you got to wait for that to clear through the clearinghouse. It takes 2 or 3 days, sometimes 5 days, depending on the bank, to have access to those funds. So what Fed now is going to do, which is actually isn't a terrible thing, is to clear those transactions instantaneous. So they're going to see how that works. And if that goes well, then the next step will be, okay, we're going to make all transactions instantaneous and then eliminate cash. What I think is it's a lot easier said than done. I don't think this is something that's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. There a lot of people, especially the lower down you go socioeconomically, like people deal in cash. Like not a lot of people have bank accounts or even have the credit to get a credit card, so they're dealing in cash. So you have to make a lot of accommodations to sell it to those people that deal in heavily cash denominated transactions to use this CBDC. Now, is it going to be a card? Is it going to be your phone? What if you can't afford a phone? So there's a lot of logistics, I think, that have to be worked out. But I think eventually the goal is that that's what they want. But I think it's going to just be a lot more difficult than they expect, which is good for us because we have enough time to teach people about these alternate ways to hold your wealth. And that's really what it's about. Like, I don't really like where people talk about Bitcoin as like a hedge against inflation. In some aspects it is, but tell that to the guy that bought at 60,000 and is holding at 30,000 now. It's not, it didn't hedge anything for that person. So you want to teach people, no matter what product they're investing in, whether it be real estate, whether it be, stocks, that you have to look long term. You can't try to be like that godlike investor that's going to buy something today and sell it for 100% profit 6 months from now. You got to look longer term. Diversify your portfolio with a lot of things that you believe in and hold it for the long term. In the event that we go CBDC in the next 10, 15 years, you had these other assets that you can hold your wealth in and be ready for that. And that's where we're trying to educate people.
With everything you said, with them trying to do what they're doing with the digital currency, there's another situation that's happening. It's kind of like an elephant in the room that really nobody wants to talk about, but it's our currency. It's our currency. It's the dollar that is being devalued and losing the ability to be traded in the free market with BRICS and everything coming about. How do we keep our money, or how do we keep the value in what we have with the I guess with the failing of our dollar? Do we put the money in Bitcoin, which is going to be able to hold our dollar at a certain value? I mean, the Bitcoin goes up and down, but I mean, if the bottom falls out with our dollar being traded, then it's going to drop like to how it was how the Venezuela dollar dropped. What do we do?
The real scary piece is that it's all basically everybody talks about like these cryptos being Ponzi schemes or Bitcoin being a Ponzi scheme. You just laid it out. The dollar is really a Ponzi scheme. I mean, we saw during the pandemic them print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And when you flood the market with money, obviously prices are going to go up. We no longer back the dollar by gold. So you have to try to find alternate places to put your wealth. And for me, like personally, I do that with Bitcoin. That's for me. I'm preserving wealth. The assets that I've allocated towards Bitcoin, I have no plan to sell. My son Cash, my daughter Harlow, at some point in time, they'll have what I have because I don't ever plan to sell it. That's how I'm preserving my wealth and passing it on to the next generation. But in the meantime, you have to try to find these other assets that are going to beat the inflating dollar. And you're right, that's difficult. It's hard to find exactly what those things will be. Maybe it's Ethereum, maybe it's an NFT project, real estate. Like I think at some point, and when you mentioned BRICS, which was really good, a lot of these countries are starting to realize that what we're not realizing is that you have to get something behind a currency. We can't keep printing to inflation. And I think at some point, if it's not going to be us, somebody's going to go back to the gold standard and say, you know what, we have to stop this printing, this insane printing, and somebody's got to put, and I know that China's talked about it, Russia's talked about it, which is very unfortunate for us if that happens, to start backing one of these currencies with gold again, like we did up until 1971 with Bretton Woods in 1944. So there can be some global stability, because if we don't do that, what you said is going to happen. We're just going to inflate every single currency, and it's just going to be chaos. And you will see anarchy and just ruin. And you're right. People need to realize that that's a possibility if we don't do that.
So do you think like maybe being able to put like say I got some extra bread, right? And I'm like, you know what? The banks are kind of acting crazy. I don't know if I'll be able to get it out when I want to get it out. Do I say, you know what? I'm going to put it in Bitcoin?
That's what I would
buy, or do I buy gold pieces or silver pieces?
Combination of both. I never shit on gold and silver. I still think those are good. I think gold is great, and Bitcoin is just a step better. Like if you have a lot of wealth, if I had $1 million and I wanted to put into something, I could put it into gold. But then if I need to transport that poses problems. Whereas Bitcoin, I can put on a thumb drive, a hardware wallet on my phone, and I can travel with that and then transact back into whatever the local currency if I had to do that. Gold, like I said, gold is great, but if you're transacting large value, now you have to figure out how you're going to transport that, which is what Bitcoin does better for gold.
And this is what
Okay.
we use to store our value is on these ledgers. So we have they're like a flash drive, and then you own your private keys. So you get I don't you've messed around with MetaMask. You get a 12-word seed phrase. Well, this is 24, and then you can engrave it on a metal sheet, and then it's portable. You can go borderless with it.
Yeah, that's powerful right there. That's powerful. Just being able to give yourself those options to do that. And yeah, that's what I also worried about too. I thought about, because trying to diversify your portfolio financially speaking, it can be very tough when you're dealing with the kind of parameters that we're dealing with a failing dollar and more restrictions when it comes to how you spend your money. Um, so with that though, it's like you know you can go the Bitcoin route, you can go the gold route, but one thing that worries me is that if there's like a they you always hear the World Economic Forum talk about there's a cyber attack, right? There's a cyber attack that shuts everything down, then getting money out would be, or even using your Bitcoin would be a bit of a challenge. So the only thing you'll be really left with is something physical like gold that holds value.
Yeah, but if they did that, I mean, they're basically handcuffing themselves as well, because that would be, you can't use CBDCs
The
because that would
central
be
bank,
electronic.
right?
You can't use anything, like you can't fly planes, you can't do anything because it's all connected to the internet. Like that's the
Yeah.
beauty of Bitcoin. You have to shut the internet down to shut Bitcoin down. And even the people
Mm,
that are completely against Bitcoin and want to see it die know that the only way they can do that is by basically taking us back to the dark ages and just going
yeah.
off of all the satellites. And it's like, are they willing to like cut off their nose to spite their face? Like that's basically what they would have to do for that scenario to play out. And if that happened, that
Yeah.
means we're in nuclear war. And the last thing I'm worried about is Bitcoin. I'm trying to find a shelter.
Straight up. Yeah.
Don, I know you had a really good question about the disconnect between the traditional system. Do you want to bring that up as our closing statement?
Yeah, I mean, Rashad, what do you think the disconnect comes between, you've rubbed elbows with probably a lot of people that have amassed more wealth than me or Troy have come across. What do you think the disconnect for people is to trust so heavily that traditional finance system where we've seen, 3, 4, 5 banks fail just in the last month, and they're just printing money to infinity, and these traditional investments that we would consider to be safe and strong are no longer safe and strong. Like what do you think the need for guys like me and Troy, where do we need to hit to try to resonate with these guys that have wealth, that are looking for a way to preserve that and pass it on to the people that they care about below them?
For me, it's the tangibility aspect, right? And I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about, they don't believe that it's real, right? Like you said earlier, it's just as real as cash, if not more real, because cash is the Ponzi scheme. But when people can go to the bank and they can pull out some cash and they can touch it, it feels more tangible. And I think that with Bitcoin, to get people to really understand the value in digital currency is to really get them to really see where their currency comes from and really how it behaves when it's not in their hand, and I feel like that will kind of open people up to really understand the fact that, you know, um, you know, Bitcoin is more powerful or just as powerful as the cash they have, but it's just people want tangible objects. People want to say, you know what, I bought this with my dollar. Look at here, I can touch it, I can feel it. It's not going anywhere, and I feel like that's the aspect that I've heard people express a lot, that you know the reason why they don't just fully go in on the digital currency, because they don't really understand too much even the digital space. The digital space is one that's taken us by storm within the last 3 to 4 years, and a lot of people still don't understand it. When I was bringing out my NFT, people had little to no idea like what it was, what the utility was, and even what's the value even holding something like that. So it's just a big education process, and I think that you're doing a great job by speaking on it and really just getting people to think differently about money and about about finances.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. They say don't put your eggs in one basket, but Andrew Carnegie says put all your eggs in one basket, but just watch that basket. And that's kind of what we're doing. This is my way that I'm putting everything in to break out of the system and building and planting seeds during bear markets. And that's where wealth is created. So
I got a question. So how long, and I know it's really hard to say, but how long do you guys foresee this bear market hanging on anymore? And I know that's kind of contingent on really what happens in other areas, right? But is there like any kind of guesstimate of when we'll be kind of climbing out of this bear market?
The beauty about Bitcoin and crypto is we have the like a natural progression of how it works with the cutting of the supply every 4 years. So they have a halving, which is going to happen in 2024, right around April, where every single day as of right now, the miners are rewarded. I don't know if you know how the process works. The Bitcoin miners are rewarded to mine the blocks. They get a certain amount every single block that they mine. Roughly around 900 per day gets released into the ecosystem. Every 4 years, that gets cut in half. So in a year, around a year from now, it'll be 450. So that depletes the floating supply. And as Bitcoin has progressed, we've seen bull markets become after the 2012, 2013, we had a high. 2016, 2017, we had the high. 2020, 2021, we had the high. So we have this one in 2024 where we anticipate end of 24 and then 25, we see the rocketing of the ecosystem with everything basically coming off Bitcoin's coattails, Ethereum, and all the other coins falling behind it. So me and Troy's belief, as we do charting every single week in our podcast, we believe that this is the beginning parts of the new new bull market. Whereas we've gone from basically 15.5 at the beginning of January to the roughly 30,000. We've already gone up 100% just this year. And we'll continue to probably range bound for a while until the end of the year. And then we'll see things really start to rocket off beginning probably Q1, Q2 of 24. And then things just get really serious in 25.
Okay. Do you think with more of an understanding from the public that our dollar is going to be a foregone conclusion? Do you think that people are going to really start to try to get more into cryptocurrency and try to spend more of the money in Bitcoin and try to hold the value there, and it will kind of drive the market a little bit more?
I think it will, because I think there was a lot of people like Troy came along in 2017 and then, was here for 2020. There's a lot of people that I think, as CNBC and these mainstream medias cover the tops, they were here for a couple. So it's like, oh, Bitcoin is here, then it died. Oh, wait, it's back. Oh, it died again. And then I think this next cycle, people are going to start to say to themselves, I don't think this thing's dying. I think this thing's here to stay. And you'll get more people as every single cycle, we've taken a couple more people and added them to the people that think the way that I think the way that Troy thinks. And I think this next cycle, when we do hit an all-time high, it's been in the mainstream talking points for so long. I mean, you got like Jon Stewart talking about it, Bill Maher talking about it, whether it's negative or not, any publicity is publicity, where it's been in enough people's psyches where they're like, I don't think this thing's, like you said it 15 minutes ago, I don't think this thing's going anywhere. And people are going to start to really look and say, hey, this dollar in my pocket, in 2019, eggs were like, 79 cents a dozen, and I'm out here paying $5 a dozen for eggs. What's going on? Like, I need to find some alternatives. And then hopefully there's people like us that are there to educate them on what's going on and what they need to do to allocate their assets, where they're open to that. And then we can really, bring people on, Noah's Ark.
And regulations will help that. New entrants into the market, institutional money. So that's coming. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time. I asked him last minute and he pulled through, and I really appreciate you coming.
Absolutely, man.
No problem, Troy. No problem, Don. I've been actually thinking about hitting you up to see what was going on with it, because I follow you on IG and I always see you talking and you always got some great energy when you're on there. So I'm just like, awesome. I need to hit up Don and see what's going on with what he's talking about. So
good to hear, man.
Yeah, good to see you doing your thing, man.